right now, we may be in one of the most interesting times in the Oldschool Runescape market. We haven't seen anything like this in years, at least not since, well, maybe the Chambers of Xeric or the Theater of Blood release. The amount of anticipation for the Tombs of Masket is massive, and this is causing huge amounts of speculation on items. Some items are doubling in a month and others are crashing ridiculously quickly. I really do think it's fascinating to look at. Starting off here with one of Oldschool Runescape's most expensive item, the Twisted Bow. Always fun to take a look at. Now the Twisted Bow actually hit its all-time low about a year ago. Back in August of 2021, it hit its lowest point ever at around 800 mil. Ever since then, and thanks to a few content releases, mainly next, and of course the upcoming Raids 3, the Twisted Bow has slowly climbed back up to its former price point, and as most of you know, the third raid is supposedly coming out in August, which is next month, so you would assume that the Twisted Bow would continue going up until Raids 3 and even maybe past it, depending on how useful it is. But of course, what's logical is not necessarily what happens. It finally hit its previous high of 1.2 bill and then proceeded to very quickly crash by about 100 mil. And interestingly, it seems to coincide with the release of the Tombs of Masket blog, where they say it's everything you need to know about the raid, but they didn't actually provide any new information. I think that maybe is what triggered a crash, but 100 mil in a week is quite significant. And it's not just the Twisted Bow, the Sanguinesti did a pretty similar thing. Right after this Tombs of Masket announcement, it crashes by millions and has continued to trend downwards in July, losing about 10% in value already. We also have the Nightmare Staff doing something pretty similar. Another item that has crashed a lot this month is Torva. The Torva plate body going from 460 mil down to 415, 50 mil loss there. The Torva plate legs even more, going from 450 at the beginning of the month to 360, losing 100 mil on the Torva plate legs. That is a significant loss just over a month. But on the flip side, not everything was negatively affected. Here's a weekly graph for the Armadillo chest plate going from, well, a low of 44 mil now up to 50 mil. The Armadillo chain skirt doing something very similar, rocketing up in value right now. So what I kind of think has happened here is once the Tombs of Masket blog was re-announced, a lot of people realized that the third raid is coming out soon and switched out of generally good investments for the raid into more specific items that are already known to be used in the raid. We know certainly the Armadillo is going to be required in the creation of the Mastery equipment, so I think it does make sense that people switch from just generally good PVM gear they're going to want to something they know for a fact is probably going to go up in price. Now, one thing that's gone up a lot this year are Ranger boots or Pegasian boots. A year ago, they were worth around 27 mil, and now they're worth about double that, peaking at 47 mil once again July. There is this softening of the market in a lot of gear that we've seen across a few items, but still worth significantly more. Now, I think a very strong contributor to this is the price of Eclectic impling jars. They have reached a peak of nearly 8,000 GP each, which is insane. That is so expensive to get medium clues this way now. Every medium clue from an Eclectic at that price would cost around 200k per medium clue, so it's extremely expensive, but I think that really has contributed to the price of Rangers. Now, are Rangers expensive because Eclectic jars are expensive, or is it the other way around, kind of chicken or the egg argument? I'm personally of the opinion I think the price of Eclectic implings has driven up the price of Ranger boots. I think Eclectic implings are expensive this year in particular because of the popularity of collection log completionist content. I think a lot more people are going for log slots this year, and I think that really has driven up the price of impling jars. It's not just Eclectics either. Gourmet impling jars are almost worth 5.5k each as well, almost tripling in price over the year, which means you definitely don't want to buy these for easy clues. So I think there's no doubt that the collection log content this year really has affected these prices. Now, one item I've been tracking for a while now is the Soul Rune. The reason I think the Soul Rune is interesting is because it is going to be used in the Shadow of Tumakin, or whatever name we landed on, for the new showstopper item from Raids 3. Now, Soul Runes historically haven't had a huge amount of uses. Here's the year look at it. This big spike is when I think the third raid was announced with all the new equipment. Didn't do much for most of the year, and now just recently has started to go up in price. In the last 3 months, it's gone up by about 25%. and will likely continue up until the third raid is out. From there, we're going to have to see how strong the Shadow Tumikin is, or really how many soul runes it uses, because if it becomes a staple item, I think soul runes could go up significantly more. If it turns out to be more of a niche item, maybe not as much. Another rune I was having a look at recently is the Chaos Rune. Interestingly enough, Chaos Runes have started to go up a fair bit. For the longest time, Chaos Runes hovered around 100 GP each, but sometime in 2019, they finally dropped. Now if we look at the year, they bottomed out last year at 44 GP, and since then have nearly doubled. So why exactly have they had a bit of a resurgence this year? Mostly I think because of the Onyx. If you look at the view for the Onyx, a very similar trend, nearly doubling in price this year, not quite. If you look at the graphs for the Uncut Onyx and the Chaos Rune, almost identical. I'm swapping back and forth right now and they literally look the exact same. Another item that has followed a kind of similar trend this year is the Zulrah items. We haven't looked at them in quite a while. Now, if you guys recall, last year, Zulrah scales and most of the Zulrah uniques hit an all-time low. Zulrah scales hitting a low of I think around 80 GP, something around there. But ever since then, they've actually started to slowly trend back upwards, kind of along with most PVM gear, going from a low of 90 GP each to a peak of 230 at the end of June. Once again, softening near the end, but Zulrah scales have doubled throughout the year, which is significant. And in a similar fashion, the Toxic Blowpipe is tied to that value as well. The Blowpipe going from 1.8 mil up to a peak of nearly 5 mil, actually past 5 mil to be honest, bringing the Toxic Blowpipe up to one of its historic strong price points. And all the other unique items are going to follow a pretty similar trend. Here we have the Toxic Trident being at one of its highest points ever actually. So across the board, the market is incredibly strong right now. Another item that has seen significant growth this year is the wilderness weapon, the Craw's bow. This month alone has actually gone up by almost 10 mil. Mid-June is worth around 30 mil, and just a couple weeks ago it peaked at around 40 mil, which means the Craw's bow is at one of its highest points ever, except for the release of course. And the bow itself has nearly tripled in value just this year. Now, although most gear is rising up due to the Tombs of Amascut, I don't think that's what's happening to the Craw's bow, obviously, because I don't think many people think a wilderness exclusive weapon will be useful in the Tombs of Amascut. But keep in mind, we do also have the wilderness boss rework that is supposedly coming in the nearish future, so I think there's a bit of speculation on that. But either way, the crossbow is incredibly expensive right now. Now, another item that has seen significant growth this year is the Dragon Arrow. Now, if we look at the beginning of the year, the Dragon Arrow is worth only around 600 GP each, but we can see right when Next was released, it rocketed the price upwards, and have stayed relatively even and even maybe trending upwards for the remainder of the year. Thanks to in part, of course, the Tombs of Amascut, but also the fact that the Twisted Bow is quite cheap for much of the year, relative of course to the Twisted Bow price, and has maybe made the Twisted Bow more accessible to more players, causing the Dragon Arrow to be more in demand. Now, one item I haven't looked at in a long time is actually the Cannonball. A couple of really interesting things happened this year. Firstly, I mean, Cannonballs got really expensive. They peaked at 260 GP each. But Cannonballs actually received a buff this year in the form of the double Cannonball mold, which came out in June, and I kind of wanted to have a look again. Has it really changed the price at all? And the answer is a bit, but not really. Even though you can make Cannonballs twice as quickly, the price really hasn't dropped notably. I mean, it certainly hasn't dropped in half. If anything, it's dropped by about 10 or 20%. So pretty much now, if you have the double Cannonball mold, you're going to be making nearly double the profit, so quite nice actually. Now, another item that I think was affected by the Giant's Foundry is gold ore. I didn't have a look at it last time, but gold ore actually peaked at the end of May at 350 GP each. And ever since then, it has gone down by about 30 or 40%. Looking at the last year, it actually had been slowly increasing all year, with a sharp drop off when the Foundry released. My guess is that the Giant's Foundry has offered an alternative way to train the skill, and maybe that has made Blast Furnace a bit less appealing. Kind of surprised me a little bit, as the Giant's Foundry doesn't seem super popular. Now, normally every video I make in the market, there's at least one or two items where I have no clue what's going on, and that's the case with the Gilded Pickaxe. Kind of an obscure item, but while it was gone, ever since May 11th, they've gone from 5 mil and rocketed up to 3 times their value, up to 17 mil. And now we're starting to crash again. Guesses, anybody? And finally, we of course have to have our monthly look at the Oldschool Runescape bond, and yeah, it's still not looking great. Here we can see in the last week, it actually went up to 7.1 mil, and it's probably only gonna get worse. Here we are at the precipice of blasting into a new territory for bond prices that we've never seen before. Already, I think it's hit an all-time high, and I think we definitely need to brace for at least 1 or 2 mil more this year, I would expect. So if you need to get membership on a new account, well, it might be time just to whip out that good old-fashioned credit card. Now, before I go here, I want to give a giant thank you to all of my members over on YouTube. Thank you so much to March3258, who just joined the Dragon tier, joining the Hybrid, Alejandra, and Kush Patel. Thank you guys so much, really appreciate it. Also, thank you to YoYoSub89, Carter, Mexos, and NDM001 for subscribing at the Rune tier. Again, thank you so much. As always, if you're looking for a way to support the channel directly, YouTube membership is a great way to do so. Get immortalized in all of my future videos, and get a custom role in my Discord server. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.